We've relocated in a way that kind of symbolizes the same transition that we make in integrating an academic with a meditative reading of the Bible. We kind of associate the academic reading with our office, with our desk, with our pens and our papers. And having done that, we look for the recliner. We look for the trees, the atmosphere, the nature, and we can sit back with what we've done during our study and reflect on it, meditate on it, bask in it, savor it, if you will. If you'll remember one last time, the letter that I received from Deborah in 1974, where her boss kissed her on the back of the neck, and the eagerness with which I asked those interpretive questions. As soon as I discovered that she rose in disgust, slapped him across the face, and I said, yes, I could sit back in my chair and think, wow, she's devoted to me. Wow, she wasn't interested in that. She wasn't looking around, playing the field, or any of those kinds of things. And I can derive from that a certain level of meaning, of significance. So come back to Genesis 1 through 3, and let me simply outline a few thoughts that a meditative or reflective reading of the scriptures would bring to us as a follow-up to our earlier study. I think first of all about Genesis chapter 1 and being created in the image of God. This text celebrates our potential, our capacity, our like-mindedness with God. The fact that when he created us, he didn't use secondary ingredients, didn't leave anything out, created us with the potential to thrive, to fly, and to flourish. And so sometimes, we read self-help books to improve our self-image and our self-esteem. I'm walking around on the sidewalk here on campus and think, is there anything I'm good at? And I hear these words, Brentzinger, you're created in the image of God. When you're tempted to overly criticize yourself, to dismiss your capabilities, your potential, your value, your worth in God's eyes, this text reminds me, sitting in my chair, wow, I've been created in the image of God. But juxtapose that to the text in Genesis chapter 2, where we're fashioned out of dust. There are other people whose problem isn't low self-esteem, it's arrogance. It's a failure to acknowledge their own limitations and weaknesses. And so I'm walking around, just had this major accomplishment, or students thought my class was great, or we've had a proposal approved, and I'm walking with great enthusiasm, and I'm on the sidewalk, and this text kind of reverberates in my mind. But Brentzinger, you're dusty. You've been fashioned out of dust. Regardless of who you are and what you've created, you are still a part of the created order. You are not the creator yourself. And so I live in that tension, as I mentioned, this kind of balanced anthropology, affirming my value, affirming my worth, but recognizing my limitations, and as a result of those limitations, my profound need for God. It's in that context, if you will, of divinity and dustiness, of the potential to rise and the likewise threatening opportunity to fall, that the reference to those two trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in Genesis chapter 3, strike me. I sit back with those and think, okay, there are some strategic decisions to make. In a very profound way, the direction, the flow, the outcome of my life and those people I work with isn't entirely dependent upon, but clearly relates to the choices that I make. Will I reach for the tree of life, which I have ongoing access to, or will I resist that tree and instead reach for the solitary tree that I'm to avoid and take matters into my own hands? And I struggle with this. I find this, there are any number of situations in life where I have to be reminded of this. I'm told that educational administrators struggle with what a writer calls shame, not in the sense of something bad we've done, but always feeling like I'm not worthy of this job. There are other people who could do this better than me, and all of that kind of stuff. I look at these texts And I'm reminded when I see those choices of just how desperately I need God. I need to stay with the tree of life. Gordon MacDonald once said that young pastors can survive for 40 years or so on grit, determination, and personal ingenuity. And then at some point when they're in their 40s, they realize this striking, I need God. Genesis chapter 3 tells us, leave your hands off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't be independent. Don't be self-sufficient. That doesn't mean don't work hard, don't take the most of your education, all of that. But ultimately, your security lies in your connectedness to God. In this text, created in the image of God, fashioned out of dust, and then the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, we see this strikingly graphic picture, it seems to me, of the entire human situation. It was a human womb that produced a Billy Graham, a Mother Teresa. And it's a human womb that produced an Idi Amin and an Adolf Hitler. It's this whole tension between the image of God and dustiness that when it gets skewed, when it gets mixed up, has enormous potential to do good or evil. James Thurber once wrote, he said, it's hard to be humorous or to sustain humor when on the one hand we are working feverishly to produce a drug that will cure us from all that ails us, and at the same time to manufacture weapons of mass destruction that in a moment could destroy the entire earth. We have fundamental choices to make. God has created us in the image of God and out of dust. And he's inviting us to trust him with all of our energies and time and resources to stay connected to that tree of life and to resist the impulses, the temptations that are all around us, to abandon that connectedness and take matters into our own hands. In Genesis chapter 1, this God of ours is powerful, majestic, turns chaos into order. He's in control, he speaks and creates. In Genesis 2, he's there, he's present, he fashions, and in Genesis 3, he clothes. There are these two remarkable sides to God in the same way that there are two remarkable sides to human beings. But the God of Genesis chapter 1 isn't the kind of God that you would snuggle up to. The kind of God that, like my dad, he's this big guy and he'd embrace you with this massive hug. Genesis 1 doesn't strike you like that. But the God of Genesis 2 wraps his arms around you. So he's both capable and present. He's both in control and caring. And when you wrap those two together, you have a whole picture of God who's both loving but powerful. And I think we all want to serve a God, need to serve a God who fits into both of those categories. So those are some thoughts about how we go from reading a text to sitting with it and meditating on reflecting. And I hope you can begin to see the connectedness between a more academic reading and a more meditative reading. They actually fit together beautifully, and they feed each other in really constructive ways.